Dave?
I'm good, actually.
Good. Did you do something special for your beautiful wife for Mother's Day?
Um, we hung out with the family and had a good time. And
That'll work. Oh, was that the blue blazer, red tie day? Or that
no,
was, somehow I saw a photo pop up on Facebook with a bunch of Robertsons slash whatever greens with blue. Everyone was wearing the same.
no. That's and actually, if you go up to her office, I made her
Maybe I
bring
saw
them
in
in.
her office that picture.
Could be. So her side of the family, a couple of Christmases ago, got everybody together,
That's
and
sweet.
yeah, which was great. And then brought in a guy who took local wedding pictures to take pictures of
family
various
portrait.
family. Yeah,
That's very nice.
that was good. That
Yeah.
was good. How about you? Did the kids?
Yeah, my wife decided that what she really wanted for Mother's Day was to go into Manhattan alone, without me, and go to a spin class. So she goes, "You cook for the whole family, and then I'll come back." So we had a bunch of her family over for a change.
Whatever.
Which doesn't happen. Yeah, whatever makes her happy. I don't
Makes her
care.
happy, which is good. So,
She's into her biking.
yeah.
So
Congratulations on Joe's note and the final accomplishment on
I didn't
the
read
JT.
the note. Oh, the JT thing. Yeah. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I was supposed to send Jeff Blatt a note when the Eagle had landed. He wanted me to send him, some kind of a code.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, hopefully this is not the only time we can talk. I know you don't have a ton of time, but you had thoughts about knowing that I'm still trying to see if there's a little bit of short-term stuff.
Yeah.
Knowing that there's not a lot, but maybe there's a little bit, which would be helpful. But even if it's just helping her frame some thinking or whatever for
Right.
2 weeks or whatever. So, and I'm sitting there with Bethany right after this to sort of say, I think this is what you should do, and here's why I think you should do that, and
Right.
let her sort of poke holes in it. And Lori and I are going to spend chunks of time over the next couple of days on that stuff as well. But you had ideas, I think, about.
Well, look, my personal opinion is, and I think you would agree, finance is probably not the role. Like financial reporting.
Financial reporting is not the role.
Right. Finance is different, but financial reporting, I personally can't stand myself. And I think, because you and I both very similar. Like we like to be entrepreneurial. We like to kind of do deals. We like to understand the operational side of it.
Yeah.
I just think doing anything finance, pure finance, is a bad idea. And biz dev to me feels like that's really where I think you'd be a lot happier there. That's something we talked to you about a while ago. We just don't have that many roles for biz dev.
No, Andy, I'm disappointed that I kind of heard more of what I wanted to hear in the description, and things
It
evolve.
It wasn't like, it may not have been a pleasant experience all the time, but it's never a bad experience to do something different.
No,
You also learn something in the process. Like, you learn, I don't want to do that kind of role in the future. But
I did not go in setting all that. It doesn't really matter, right? I didn't realize it was going to be as financial reporting heavy, or I would have said, "You're crazy, Andy. That's not my strength. I'm as good as anybody around, and I count you in that bucket at cost accounting thought process of the economics of a business." But that's not financial reporting.
No.
That's
but let's not even talk about that. I kind of feel like if you want my help on the biz dev side going forward, I have a very large network of these third-party ad tech companies. We deal with a lot of them. I know a lot of them pretty well. So my only thing would be go through my LinkedIn, look at those companies, make sure your resume is updated for like biz dev related stuff, and write up a letter about and then let me. I'm happy to help.
That's great. So what I've started working on is 3 different versions of resume. One that's very small, startup.
Are we giving you outplacement services?
I don't know. We haven't really figured this out yet. I'm just.
You should. We should.
Lori hasn't figured out timing. And I don't mean to say this in a. I didn't anticipate this when I kind of left where I was, and so I didn't get careful about protecting myself. So part of why I'm trying to make sure that if there's a little bit in the short term, that would be helpful, or however there is an opportunity to kind of help someone with some outplacement, that would be great. But again, what I'm trying to go after is kind of to your point. One that's a very more mid-sized and even larger biz devy, but very entrepreneurial role. One is really small, not unlike what Hans ended up going to do, actually, which is how.
What does he do?
So he's one of like a handful of guys at a little bitty startup in like a goof. Probably won't work, but doesn't really matter. You kind of go and try that entrepreneurial space, and his is in a kind of funky, connect the dots kind of B2B lead gen sort of business. I'm actually going to grab lunch with him on Friday, and just say, look, you managed to make this sort of bridge to entrepreneurial. Tell me the good, the bad, the ugly. So I'm trying to sort of write one for that, because I am a generalist in operations, and if you're at a really small company trying to get going, that would be.
No, that might be the right place.
Yeah. So
because they want you to do a little bit of everything, and you can.
Sure. And so, and I've make sure that I'm reading and tweaking, LinkedIn profile stuff to make sure that I'm kind of doing that. Some of it's really just maybe a couple minutes to sort of help you target, and I'll go look at your LinkedIn.
Well, look at it,
yeah,
and then I'm happy to sit down with you. But do you ever read Ad Exchanger?
Every day.
Okay, so I mean, when you're on Ad Exchanger, jot down names of companies that you feel like are, because that really does get into the names of ad, because that's the world that I kind of feel like I can help.
Yeah, I mean,
outside of that world, I don't have the connections on the biz dev side, but
sure. No, I mean,
in that world, we deal with a lot of them.
Yeah, it's I read Ad Exchanger every day. I mean, I told you when I came over, part of if there were more that were more interesting for me to do and trying to actually sell it as a business, like the guys, I became really kind of close to the guys at Loadme from her DMP perspective, that whole angle and trying to figure out what on earth is going to happen with publishers and second party data and all that stuff.
Right.
And I don't know that you ever end up doing the test with the guys at Crosswise, but
no, we didn't.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
I mean, I'm just curious about. You don't have to really tell me why. Just sort of, I thought they had the real deal, personally.
I don't remember anymore why we didn't do it.
I think
maybe JT became head of data. I'm like, well, it's not my job, so I'm like,
okay. I mean, so that like the way that, as you know, like the entrepreneurial sort of angle there, little bitty company, trying to sort of, it has nobody in the U.S.
Right. No, that's a great place to go.
Yeah.
Like Loadme, you remember Jeff Burak? Did you deal with Jeff? So he's
Only
still there.
Mm-hmm.
So Jeff and I still maintain pretty close relationships. So, and it's a very close buddy of his who's the CEO of Loadme. So I mean, there are companies like that where at least I have good connections where I can put you in. And the other thing is, most of those companies do post their jobs either in Ad Exchanger or somewhere.
Yeah.
So if there's specific roles, then at least
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of happy to go after the specific role if it happens to sort of pop up, but more importantly,
it's kind of get out there.
More importantly, it's really just going after, where there could be an opportunity where you've got companies like that are in growth mode. I mean, what do you think is worth shying away from? I'm just. You gave me a few minutes, which is great. I just want to ask some questions about what you think.
Shying away from in terms of
what are category plays within the world that you touch, the sort of ad tech, ad data, whatever, that you actually think are just to be careful about because you think they're, closer to the sun or gonna have.
Contextual targeting is over. There are some companies out there still pushing their newfangled way of doing that, but I don't think that's it. Everything right now is mobile web. Kind of deterministic data is certainly hot. Yeah. Video is still very hot. That's where I see most of the efforts going these days.
So can I ask a couple of questions just to make, because we've talked about this before and you poo-pooed it, but on the deterministic data side in mobile and sort of kind of where cross-device comes in, do you think it has any connection at all that's viable in the Internet of Things kind of in-store beacons? Because you were like radically...
I love the in-store beacon idea, but... and I actually have some right here if you'd like. I literally bought them because I was so into the idea at first. Never used it or anything, but
just
the problem with beacons, beacons are huge, and I think they're going to be huge.
They require your app to be open.
They require the app to be open. They require that you have an app that is scaled and being used.
Right.
So you got to come up with a shopper marketing app that either gives you enough money to make it interesting, or
this is why I'm asking.
So to me, that's the issue. Is that like, we're working with Michael Loeb on MobiSave. MobiSave has 10,000, 15,000 users that he's essentially paying to use because he's giving them money back into their PayPal account.
Mm-hmm.
How do you build that? We're running a test in a few weeks in People Magazine and People.com to see what effort it would take to get people to download that app, which is a shopper marketing couponing app. Now, once you have critical mass, but you have to have millions, then beacons are really interesting. Now, they are using beacons for a variety of data collection things.
Oh, yeah.
So you don't have to have, the beacon can see the mobile IDs, and they just capture mobile IDs.
Yeah. No,
but I think it's fascinating. I just don't know, to me it's always theoretically very simple to talk about. What's hard is getting people to actually use this shit on a regular basis.
Is there, so just staying on this, because it's an area I'd like to make sure I'm really knowledgeable on as I kind of go out there. Just, is there anything you've been reading lately? You have more ADD than anyone I know.
Make sure, I might as well take it out.
Is there anything I should be reading that's more current on? Because I know you're right about the impediment to, like, at Parade we drove, tens of thousands of downloads, but then you got a utilization problem, after the fact.
Tens of thousands of downloads is just not interesting, right?
No, but
you need to get millions.
I know.
So I'm looking at some apps now that are heavily downloaded, heavily used, and not well monetized. So that's something that M&A and I have been working with, like Shazam, heavily used, heavily downloaded, not well monetized, probably worth billions or something, but I don't know what it's worth. I don't even know who owns it. So like that, so there are, and then can you take that kind of a software development kit, which already has an installed base, and now use it for other things? That's kind of because it's so hard to get people to download and use it. That's the tough part.
Yeah. Okay.
The other side, the Internet of all things, I don't know where that, because my head is in the media world, so I don't really. Everything is going that route, and we know that it's all happening pretty rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
But from a media perspective, it's more about, virtual reality is hot, but it's going to take years to get to where they want to go. So we're in the midst of this deal with Google on VR, and it gets really complicated, and the technology is really complex, and most of it doesn't really exist yet. And what we're seeing today is really basic VR. The real cool stuff is probably 5 years away. So that stuff is far from prime time.
No, and as interested as I am in that, I'm more interested in what where in-store sort of based beaconing can finally get unlocked, because
it can. The technology is 100% available.
Yeah.
But you got to get. Someone's got to figure out how to market something to people that makes it so compelling that you can kill FSIs once and for all. That's really what we're talking about.
Is there anybody other than Michael who you felt like is doing something interesting?
Well, Michael's is the weakest of all of those. Ibotta is the number one, and there are a bunch of others.
But there's not a lot of use there.
No, there isn't.
No.
Ibotta has a much larger. We actually have a list of all of them with what their user monthly active users are. They're all much larger than MobiSave. And the MobiSave business model is no better than any of the others. So you'd think the FSI guys of the world, like Velasquez, would have figured this out.
Maybe that's what Wayne's going to do.
I was going to say, you keep in touch with Wayne. He could use a biz dev guy working on that aspect of Velasquez. That would be an interesting place to, because that's we know there's money there. We know FSIs can't go on forever, but they continue to still make a lot of money. And there's News America Marketing.
Yep.
I know a couple people over there, but they were doing like floor talkers. They've been innovating for a while. I don't know if they've done anything with beacons. But if you go into Kroger's and if you have a loyalty card, you can use beacons all day today, because the loyalty cards, people do use those.
Yeah, connected. We probably talked about this. Ken Fenyo, who was the CRM guy at Kroger and then went to U Technologies and sold it to Kroger, and I kind of got to know each other. because I was trying to figure out how to like make that connection behind the scenes back at Parade.
Did you ever deal with Dunn Humby, those guys?
Yeah, so Stuart
That's-
Aikens, who's now it's 1058 now, right? Is the company name?
I don't know. Yeah, what it's called now.
So I got a little bit of time to make a connection with their CEO for the U.S. Kind of pre-explosion spinoff, rebranding, and everything. And so, trying to get back in touch with him. Merkel, do you know them very well?
I've met with them a few times recently. Really interesting company. Great data. They're doing really well.
Yeah. So
Privately held.
yeah.
Interesting.
So this is the third resume bucket that's out there.
Right.
So they've got they have practice areas, right? So one of them is actually media and entertainment, where they're looking for an account person who works with clients to try to sort of activate
Right.
their data and activate their sort of media buying and all that other stuff. So I've got one guy that I was pretty good friends with from iCrossing who's now there, and one other, fairly good contact at Merkel. And that would be sort of the third bucket, which is it's much more client facing. It's trying to figure out how to partner with the client to get them to sort of try new stuff. So it's biz dev of sort, but with kind of the activated client. So that's the third
That sounds
resume
good.
type. Yeah, and it's Dunn Humby is clearly a company like that on the list. Merkel, that's big, yeah, big and private, and I don't fully understand because no one really understands exactly what they do or how they
Well,
got
it's an
that big.
agency and it's a data company. It's a kind of an interesting mix.
Yeah,
They're a big ad agency.
yeah, and so I'm those are areas, and I've like they're a couple of their data retail guys I got to know through Parade actually, because they were asking sort of dabbling questions about beacons. So. Okay, so I'm gonna over the next day or two kind of do a little poking around on your LinkedIn to try to see if there's some folks that
I think that's the
would
best
make
way to
sense for
start.
introduction. Again, I've started working through rewrites of resume versions. I'm trying to like shifting back to the data. I'm trying to make sure I'm sitting down like here's what I think you need as opposed to what you have to do all the right stuff. I'm making sure that I'm pushing to Bethany or Lori, anything that I should.
Right.
Obviously, I mean I'm not gonna do the wrong stuff. I'm trying to figure out, I am trying to figure out if there are some short-termy things to do just because.
Well, I mean, if Chris needs the help, Chris has mentioned that you were asking him, and he was actually asking me. I'm fine with Chris having you work on some things. I just need for him to tell me what and how much money we're going to spend, and just so I know we're covered. But if it's just a few weeks here and there, I mean, I don't know what else there is.
No, I think and this is, it's more like after I first talked with Lori, I then immediately had to follow up with him, like, I was kind of transparent saying, I'm gonna start thinking about new stuff, and he and I had talked a couple of times about how there was a less, here's an area where we think there's opportunity kind of approach to pursuits, and it was more who called us and let's call them back.
Right.
And he's like, I don't feel like anyone else is going to do that. If anything, it's to spend 2 weeks to try to do a market assessment.
Right.
Like, here's where you could go, and in this area you're going to be competing with Quad's business, Blue Soho, and so maybe you cooperatively compete, and over here you're competing with so and so, and try to figure out what the opportunities might
I
be.
mean, I think you just work with Chris and come up with a proposal.
Okay.
And then let Chris come to Lori and I and say, here's
Okay.
what he wants to do.
All right, I'll try to connect with him tomorrow. I think I was supposed to talk to him tomorrow anyway. Anything else?
I mean, the biz dev stuff I think is the best bet. And just start to isolate companies. The only other thing I get is this Joe Meyer thread. You get that?
No.
So I gave Scott McAllister. I forwarded it to him. I'll forward it to you. I don't know what was your title here?
GM or VP GM.
I think you have to be a VP title or above to get onto the list. But it's a list of current openings, it's a pretty extensive list. I'll forward it to you now.
Okay.
Take a look at it and see if there's anything there. If everything's like SVP, EVP, or chief, whatever, it may not be worth it. Although, so you never know. Smaller companies, they have all kinds of. So I'm gonna send it to you,
Awesome.
and then I can nominate you. I can't guarantee you that I don't know how he decides.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. But
I got on it from Alyssa Fishman. I didn't even know about it.
What is she doing?
She's working kind of a CFO of a nonprofit, and she's really happy.
Good for her.
And that's, I think she's really happy doing something a little bit different. And
yeah, that's great for her.
Dave.
Okay.
What's your email address, Dave?
It's still the David M. Robertson.
David.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dave also works though.
So what is it, David.Robertson?
Mm-hmm.
There you go. David M. Robertson at Yahoo, can I use that?
Yeah, sure.
Or David Robertson at Time Inc. Which
Either one. Yahoo's fine. Yahoo's
I did
probably
the Time
better.
Inc. one, right?
Okay.
You can forward yourself. So take a look through this.
Okay.
Okay. So I mean, the positions are, I don't know. You'll see. There's definitely quite a bit of, well, there are VPs and stuff like that. So here's how it works. I can get you nominated. I can nominate you, and if I nominate you, I don't use up any of my credits. I think I actually get some credits. The way he works it is, if you post a position in your company, VP level or higher, you get 3 credits. If you ask for, hey, what company is this that's hiring for this position, you have to use 2 credits, something like that. So it's based on credit. So I think I can nominate you without any problem, and then he decides. I don't know exactly how it goes through, but the job listings are really good, and they're worth. And so look through it and tell me if you think it's worth nominating.
I will do that.
And then we can go
Okay.
because that's to me that's like the best source. So
Don't lose your special
I'll leave them out there now. People ask about it.
That'll be great.
All right.
Thanks.
But we would tell it directly.